Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror in detail. Today we are going to share werewolf horror stories. First story. The night I saw a werewolf at summer camp. Pardon my terrible storytelling skills. Never had them. I have never been a firm believer of the beyond. What I mean by the beyond is ghosts, monsters, demons, etc. It's just a bunch of bullshit to me. Don't get me wrong, it's fun to watch, but it's obviously not real. Well, that's what I used to think. You might think that's the most common hook ever, but just stick with me, okay? Anyway, I was around 11, and my mom just wanted to get rid of me for a week. She needed a little bit of alone time. She scoured the internet for summer camps, till she found the perfect one. Now, I'm not going to give out this camp's name, because I don't want them to get in trouble or anything. So I'm just gonna call it Camp Fucking Haunted as Hell. I'm terrified, because I was a kid that was never left home alone, and never left the side of my parents. So imagine being gone for a week. We were on the way to the summer camp, in the middle of Tennessee, and everything was completely and utterly terrifying. Not because there were monsters in the sky chasing the car while the cartel were after us and there were ghosts blocking the road. I just didn't want to leave. I'm pretty sure I cried, not gonna lie. I got there, and it was very strange. The site was an abandoned apartment building. Me and my urbex mind wanted to get in it immediately, but of course the counselors wouldn't let me. Little did I know the absolutely terrifying reason the apartment building went abandoned. But, in the beginning, being on that site was a dream. It had a beautiful garden, a little plaza with a kitchen, a pool, and even a massive storage room. We didn't stay anywhere close to the apartment building, though. We were all the way in the back. There were 2 cabins for boys and girls, and each cabin had 2 sections for 11 and under and 12 and older. I was put into the boys' younger section, which was terrible because everyone else was like 8 or something and was just screaming whatever the equivalent was to skibbity toilet, whatever that was back then. They also absolutely stank. Holy shit, I've been yapping, let's get into the scary stuff. We had this friend, let's call him Jack, and he was a CIT counselor in training. And he was the son of the owner of the whole darn camp, so he had tons of inside information. That night he tells us that 2 German women were murdered in the basement of that building in the 80s. The murderer was never found, but is assumed dead because of his old age at the time of the killings. Also, before that, all the way back in the 60s, there was a fire that wiped out most of the forest and even some of the apartment building. Most of the kids in my section of the cabin were terrified to go to sleep, but me and my friends, let's call them Mike in action, were very interested in this story. So interested that we ended up yapping about it at the girls' cabin, and then the whole camp knew that someone spoke. I'm not sure if Jack got in trouble, but we did. Someone told them that we were spreading it, and we were told not to talk about it. We asked, "Is it true?" And she came around with a big walk off. She just walked off. We basically knew that this place wasn't good news, and we were creeped. Also, the next day was a blood moon, so that kinda made it 10 times worse. That day me, Mike, my friend, let's call him Juan, and Jack all went for a hike on one of the many trails the camp had to offer. We found a strange totem pole-looking thing. It wasn't exactly a pole. It was more of just a 5-foot tall and 10 feet wide stone platform. It honestly looked like one of those graves you would find in New Orleans or something like that. It had many designs all over it, but one thing caught our eye. The largest design on the front was a 3D stone wolf head. Keep that in mind for later. This was also right behind the cabins. Also keep that in mind. We mostly just played around with it. We just hoped on top of the platform, and we even drew stupid shit all over it with one Sharpie. Eventually, around dinner time, we left to go to the cafeteria. Everything was pretty normal and fun till that night. We were lying in our beds when we heard a bunch of noises come from behind the cabin. What were these noises? Freaking howls, and not just one, like a whole pack, and it was coming from the platform that had a wolf head on it. When we thought back on what it looked like, it didn't seem too far off from a summoning platform. Not to mention a group of girls thought they saw a cult. I'm not sure. I don't believe those girls. Anyway, we made a bunch of theories like maybe there was a cult or that was really a summoning platform, and also the fact that the blood moon was the next day. Wolf plus moon usually means werewolf, but like I said, I did not believe in monsters, so I was a huge skeptic on that. The next day played out nice. Jack even let us into the apartment building. Action had one of those EMF readers, and Jack installed one of those spirit box apps on his phone, but none of it worked. The spirit box was speaking a different language, and the EMF reader only worked in the basement. That's when everyone had a holy shit moment. The murders happened in the basement, and that different language we are hearing? Yeah, that was German. Now, I don't believe those spirit box apps, but just the fact that it was German was kind of a huge coincidence. That night was the blood moon, and that night was the night where I realized monsters exist. That night we looked out of windows and were absolutely terrified about what we saw. It was a man. This man looked almost homeless. He had raggedy clothes on and just looked nasty. Jack and the other CITS immediately reported this to the camp officer, but not until the man could get inside an abandoned barn. The officer, along with 2 policemen, rushed into the barn and we heard a gunshot. They killed something, and that something was a wolf. Now we had eyes on the barn the whole time, and we had eyes on the only entrance/exit of the barn, and the guy never left. They said they searched the whole thing and only found the wolf. Nothing eventful happened the rest of the week, and I even went a second year, and some crazy haunted shit happened there, but I'm late to my dinner plans, so I have to get going. But I know what I saw tonight. It wasn't a wolf. I saw a man that night. I saw a werewolf that night. Second story. I'm Ray and I think werewolves live at Tyler State Park. Are we there yet? Jess whines for the millionth time from the back seat. Well, not literally the millionth time. That would be physically impossible, I think. Actually, I think I Googled that once and it said that it would take like 12 days or so. So maybe it's not actually impossible, but it probably meant 12 days without stopping. And you would probably get really thirsty if you were doing that. Might even lose your voice. And Jess definitely hasn't lost her voice. So it's probably not the millionth time. But, people just say that as a nicer way of saying you're being really, really annoying. Jess, I swear. If you ask that one more time, I'm making you ride strapped to the roof rack for the rest of the trip. I threaten over my shoulder. Jess just sticks her tongue out at me before going back to braiding Daniela's hair. Those 2 have been joined at the hip since 3rd grade. Again, not literally, just to be clear. I feel like I should specify because there are real people who are joined at the hip, conjoined twins. There's a whole TV show about a set of such twins, I think. They're also married, and I don't even want to know how that works. They're not married to each other, to other people. And again, not something I want to learn more about. I just meant to clarify that that wasn't the case for Jess and Daniela. They were just really good friends. We all were. Duh. Who goes camping with people you don't like? I focused my attention back on the winding forest road, hoping we're close to the campground. Texas has a lot of great campsites, which may be surprising to some people who think the state is just a bunch of cowboys and cacti. Apparently, cactuses is also correct. But I grew up hearing cacti, which I think is also right. So cacti it is. I think it has to do with the Latin or something. Did anyone else's mom make them study Latin outside of normal school? But there are actually tons of places that are great for weekend getaways with friends like this. Just expect to deal with things being hot. All the time. Yes, even in the winter. This is Texas, after all. That, and unpredictable weather sometimes, besides the heat. Like rain and stuff. That's what I'm talking about. No snow really. So when Jess and Daniela begged me to take them camping for winter break, a weekend of s'mores and probably a little bit of bug spray sounded kind of fun, he decided. And maybe we'd get lucky. East Texas is known for having cooler weather than the South/West where I'm from. But after 6 hours crammed in my ancient Honda Accord, fun Christian joke, did you know that I drove the same car that Jesus did? Yep, it's true. John 12 verse 49 says, quoting Jesus, I did not speak of my own accord. Haha. Blasting Taylor Swift though. I'm starting to question my decision-making skills. Just a little bit. Not because I don't love my friends. They're great. But something about what that vampire I killed had said a few months prior is still stuck in my head. The end of all things. You know when a song gets stuck in your head but you just can't get it out, and you need to listen to the song again to get it out of your head, but you're afraid that having to listen to it again will just make it even more stuck in your head because your head is weird and you have anxiety sometimes? Yeah, that's what I'm feeling right now. Nothing else unusual had really been going on since then. I've mostly been focused on getting adjusted to college life. But, I don't know, I just have a feeling. I have a bad feeling about this kind of vibes, that's Star Wars, for any of the uninitiated out there. Fun movies, but the new ones are overrated if you ask me. I spot a weathered wooden sign up ahead labeled Tyler State Park, with a big map and an arrow pointing right down a narrow dirt road. Oh, thank goodness, I mutter to myself, cranking the wheel. My little Honda rumbles down the bumpy path, tall pines whipping by on either side. After a few minutes, we enter a large clearing filled with tents and RVs ringed by the forest. There's a large lake out on the other side. Great place for kayaking and stuff like that, if you're into that sort of thing. I like this place because it's not as far east as Houston, but still lets you feel like you're in the pine tree forest, which, I guess, is because you are in the pine tree forest. Jess lets out an excited squeal. It's so pretty. She did actually squeal. I have an uncle out in West Texas who has a farm and he owns a number of farm animals, including some pretty cute oinkers. But boy, do they squeal. And Jess, somehow, bless her heart, has perfected the ability to squeal exactly like one of the piglets. She just doesn't realize it, and I haven't had the heart to tell her. It's fine, as long as she doesn't end up dating a farmer boy or something like that. Did anyone read that book, Farmer Boy, as part of the Little House on the Prairie series? I don't really remember much about the book other than that the main character was always eating tons of pies and foods. Reminds me of a pig. Maybe that's why Jess's squeal made me think of that. Also, I'm hungry. Squealer or not, Jess has a point, and I have to agree with her, as I take in the towering trees silhouetted against the setting sun. Looks like no rain this week. Daniela calls out from the passenger seat. Will it be hot, though? I grumble, still thinking about squealing pigs on a hot day. Ray, it's winter time. Of course it won't be hot. She replies, scrolling absent-mindedly through her weather app. No rain is a start. But really? That confident in no heat? Your overconfidence is your weakness, I say, channeling the Emperor, Star Wars again, mimicking the raspy old evil dude's voice. My friends just laugh. Typical. But hey, no rain. Nice to know this outdoor excursion won't be a total bust. I find us a decent site that isn't already occupied, park the car, and my friends help me pitch our tent as the daylight fades. Soon we have a cozy fire crackling away, the three of us huddled around it toasting marshmallows in preparation for our s'mores. Isn't it kind of funny how we say the fire crackles, and then we make s'mores and stuff, which have marshmallows, and you use marshmallows to make Rice Krispie treats, and the literal slogan for Rice Krispies is snap, crackle, pop? Daniela and Jess look at me. Jess rolls her eyes. Oh my God, Ray. You're so funny. She and Daniela burst into laughter. I grin, despite myself. They're used to my scatterbrained thoughts being live-streamed for them when we hang out like this. And yes, I did say trademark sign out loud when I said that. Come on, Ray. Tell us a scary story. Jess demands, chocolate smeared all over her face. Daniela nods eagerly next to her. I laugh. Jess, we're already out in the middle of nowhere surrounded by what'll soon be pitch darkness. Not creepy enough for you. Jess just sticks out her lip in an exaggerated pout. I pretend to think hard. All right, but don't say I didn't warn you. I scoot in closer to the fire. So, rumor has it these very woods we're camping in tonight have some unusual inhabitants. I spin them a tale, drawing inspiration from some of my own wilder adventures. Daniela and Jess are soon clinging to each other, eyes wide. And so, the beast dragged the man's mangled body back to its lair, leaving a trail of blood in its wake. I continue, dropping my voice lower. As I say this, a twig snaps loudly from the tree line behind us. Daniela shrieks as all three of us whip around. My muscles instantly tense for action until I spot the culprit. A totally regular, non-supernatural squirrel perches on a low branch, tilting its head curiously at us. It's carrying what is probably some kind of nut, and its cheeks are very fat-looking. I assume stuffed with more nuts. I've always found it so funny how obsessed squirrels are with nuts, to the point that they'll literally stuff their cheeks full of them but then can't actually eat them while doing so. But I guess that's just to carry the nuts. And I guess that's what happens when you don't have pockets. You and me both, squirrel. Someone should start a clothing line for women that exclusively has pockets. That'd be pretty cool. Maybe a squirrel could be the mascot. No one would get the joke except me, though, so maybe not. Jess bursts out laughing. Oh man, nice going, Daniela. Daniela shoves her, cheeks flushed. That was scary. Shut up. I join in their laughter, my pulse calming back down. Maybe that's enough spooking each other for one night. We chat for a while longer until the girls start yawning. It's been a day. Driving takes it out of you, even if all you're doing is sitting there. We douse the dying fire and climb into our tent, zipping ourselves into our sleeping bags. Surrounded by the sound of wind whispering through the trees, we eventually drift off. I awake some time later to an eerie howling piercing the night. My eyes fly open, instantly alert. Next to me, Jess and Daniela slumber on, dead to the world. Not literally dead, I remind myself, just figuratively dead. Like a zombie. Haven't seen one of those before, but supposedly they actually exist. Father Ben, he's our residential bishop and a close family friend. He is familiar with what we do. Makes confession time easier. Not that killing vampires is a sin or anything. Once said that a zombie is probably what would happen if someone ate from the tree of life while possessed by a demon. You'd basically be a walking dead person. Dead soul and decomposing body, but somehow weirdly alive and unable to fully die. My friends aren't zombies. It just made me think of that. Heart pounding, I quietly unzip my sleeping bag and grab the compact crossbow I covertly brought, just in case. It is Texas, so gun territory and all that, but there's something about a trusty crossbow that just hits different. Literally, you can't shoot a wooden stake through the heart of a vampire with a pistol, but you can with a crossbow. It hits different, get it? Plus, I want to try this thing out. My dad gave it to me as a birthday gift a while back, and I hadn't gotten a real opportunity to use it beyond practice, which I am getting pretty good at. Why he couldn't have given it to me before I hunted that other vampire I told you about before, the one in the old abandoned hotel, I don't know. It would have made things a lot less scary. Unzipping the entrance, I carefully crawl out of the tent, scanning the dark woods, one hand resting on the crucifix on my belt. The howl sounds again from my left, closer this time. Too deep and guttural to be an ordinary wolf. Come to think of it, I'm not even sure if Tyler, Texas has wolves. Maybe they do. I should probably look that up next time I camp here. If there is a next time, of course. I creep towards the tree line, crossbow raised, and pull out a small but powerful flashlight I have fixed to the crossbow. About 20 feet into the forest, my flashlight beam illuminates something hunched behind a rotten log, fur bristling, fangs bared. It takes me a second to process what I'm seeing. I see the large canine muzzle first, wet saliva dripping from bared fangs. The creature has a large dog shape and size, but its eyes are burning red instead of what I would expect from a dog or wolf. Not literally burning, just like glowing. Its flesh ripples horrifically under the beam of my flashlight. My breath catches as I feel fear choking my throat. Could it be a werewolf? Were-dog? I've researched werewolves but never actually encountered one. I assume were-dogs could be real too. But why here and why now? Before I can ponder further, the beast lets loose a bone-chilling snarl and charges straight at me. So much for esmores and bug spray. I guess I was right about things taking a hairy turn. My heart lurches as I leap sideways, barely avoiding the snarling beast's snapping jaws. Whoa there, boy? I say uncertainly. Do you call were creatures boy or girl based on their human or animal form? I have no idea. Not that I had a chance to inspect its, Plus, who knows? Maybe they're gender fluid? Daniela is always saying that gender is just a social construct, but I wonder how that applies to a werewolf with probably no social skills. I put a pin in that thought for later since Fongface here keeps attempting to use me as a chew toy. I scramble up onto a nearby boulder, crossbow aimed steady in my hands. Down below, the creature prowls back and forth, its glowing crimson eyes following my every movement. I notice a strange symbol branded into its shoulder, still smoking faintly red. Some kind of occult marking? My mind races to try and place it. An alchemy sign, perhaps? Before I can puzzle it out further, Wolfie McChewstein braces on its muscular haunches to spring. I loose a bolt from the crossbow, striking the beast in the tail somehow. It yelps, more startled than injured, before rounding on me again with a ferocious roar. Yikes, sorry. I yell instinctively. Wait, what is wrong with me? I'm in mortal peril here. Stop being so polite. I think it just reminded me of when I went hunting once with my dad, and we found the perfect buck for dinner. I thought it would be so cool if I could show my dad how great of a shot I was. Except I hit the poor fool in the shoulder and didn't kill it right away. I felt so bad. But that was just a normal deer, not a were-deer. I wonder if were-deers exist. Regardless, now isn't the time for manners. I hop to another rock barely in time to avoid a swipe of its claws. Think, I tell myself, panting hard. Silver. I need silver to fight a werewolf. My hand jumps to my neck where my silver, and most importantly, pointy-tipped, crucifix hangs, and I come up empty. Crap. I took it off when I was showering, and we were in such a rush this morning that I left it in the bathroom at home. And of course didn't bring silver bullets or other blades. Rookie mistake. All I have are blessed oak bolts and a vial of holy water. The bolts seem about as bothersome as mosquito bites to this freakish hellhound. Maybe I could try exorcising it? Though, I've never seen symbols like those markings before. Could be something more ancient, something else. I rack my brain, wishing I paid better attention during Occult Studies 101 with Father Mike. He's some distant second-removed uncle, or what have you, who's both a priest and a family vampire, etc. hunter. But his class was honestly just not well taught. Remember, kids, just because you're good at your job does not mean you should be a teacher. The beast lets loose a bone-rattling roar of frustration as I leap just out of reach again. It braces to spring up the rock towards me, lips curled back to reveal rows of glistening fangs longer than my fingers. "Down, boy!" I shout in desperation, my fingers managing to wrap around the small vial in my pocket, popping the top off and splashing it with holy water. To my shock, the creature yowls in pain, smoke rising from its drenched fur. It staggers backward with a furious snarl, red eyes blazing. Maybe this thing isn't a werewolf after all? They usually don't react to holy water. But it sure ain't no ordinary wolf or dog either. I glance between the glowing symbol still searing its shoulder and the sizzling holy water dripping from its muzzle. Come on, think. Put the pieces together. There's something almost demonic about this beast. My eyes widen with sudden realization. Surely it couldn't be that easy. Matthew 8 tells of a situation where Jesus cast demons out of a man, and the demons possessed some pigs. The demons, for whatever reason drives demons to do anything, made the doomed oinkers jump off a cliff and into the ocean, where they drowned. Poor squealers. But the point is, demons can possess animals. It just is extremely rare, because what's the point? The limited mental capacity of a common beast just doesn't let the demon work as much evil as they could by possessing a human. Demon, dimidium. I cry out, commanding the foul spirit lurking within to release its hold on what I suspect to be an otherwise innocent forest predator. I guessed right. The possibly demon wolf, but still possibly Jacob from Twilight, shrieks furiously as I reveal my awareness of its true nature. Heart pounding, I steady the crossbow once more, mostly for my own confidence than anything else. There's just something about a sturdy crossbow that makes a gal feel confident in her abilities to expel hell's worst. All right, Fido, let's send you back to the pound. Eyes locked on the prowling monster, I begin chanting the banishing prayer under my breath. Banishing prayers for demons aren't complicated, but they don't really tend to work unless the subject of the possession is either bound with secure restraints, which is why it wouldn't have worked on Mr. Vampire for my last encounter, because the restraints help minimize the overall level of resistance they can give, or they're so mentally weak that you can utter the right prayer. And possessed animals definitely fall into the latter group, which is why any demon worth its salt won't possess an animal if at all possible. Still, it is one terrifying sight to behold. The demon-possessed wolf writhes on the ground, howling in pain as I finish the prayer. Black smoke starts pouring out of its mouth and nostrils. Gross. I didn't realize demons smell so bad when they exit a body. I haven't been this close before. Smells like rotten eggs mixed with skunk spray. One time when I was 12, my brother convinced me to help him make stink bombs to get back at the school bullies. We looked up how to do it online using stuff from my dad's garage. It involved mixing all these nasty chemicals that smelled so bad I almost barfed. David said real winners power through adversity or something like that. Easy for him to say with his shirt pulled up over his nose. Unfortunately, the stink bombs kind of exploded in our backpacks on the way to school because of the bumpy road we biked on. And yeah, you can imagine how well that plan worked. Anyway, where was I? Oh right, demonic wolf exorcism. The dark, wispy entity fully emerges from the creature's body, coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape with glowing red eyes and pointed teeth bared in a snarl. How cliché. Don't demons have any originality? The bargain bin villain/demon vibe is so overdone. I bet this guy doesn't even have a backstory or motivations beyond raw evil. I mean, he possessed a wolf for crying out loud. Begone, foul fiend! I shout, splashing the demon with holy water. It shrieks and dissipates into smoke, finally gone. The now freed wolf left behind blinks dazedly, then turns tail and races off into the dark woods. I breathe a sigh of relief, glad the innocent beast is free, and glad I didn't fatally wound it with my crossbow earlier. I guess Twilight fans don't have to riot over poor Jacob's untimely demise after all. I scanned the surrounding trees warily in case the demon wolf was just a distraction from something worse lurking in the shadows. But the forest is calm and quiet once more. Only the usual nighttime sounds of bugs and the occasional owl hoot or frog croak in the distance. Nothing to indicate the epic supernatural throwdown that just went down minutes before. Talk about going out with a whimper instead of a bang. My adrenaline rush fading, I suddenly feel totally wiped. Who knew exorcisms took so much out of you? I stifle a huge yawn as I gather up my fallen gear. I'll have to remember to thank Father Mike for making me memorize all those prayers. Though teaching skills he may lack, he did have a knack for getting us to memorize things. Maybe I won't even fall asleep in his next lecture. Well, we'll see. Anyway, I'm ready to get back to that cozy tent and sleeping bag. This chick needs her beauty sleep. Another day, another foe vanquished. As I crawl back into my warm sleeping bag and drift back off to sleep, I can't help but wonder about the strange glowing symbol seared onto the wolf's shoulder. I try to visualize it in my mind's eye as consciousness leaves me. A partial circle with short ends coming off of the bottom part. Why does it seem so familiar? But it's lost to my dreams as I fade off into slumberland. Third story. I think I'm turning into a werewolf. Oh, my God, Sophie said, and fell back against the sheets, exhausted. I haven't been fucked like that since I was a little girl. I fell down next to her, panting as well, and laughed. Sophie, that's terrible. I grabbed the pillow from beneath my head and hit her with it, and her breasts jiggled. What can I say? You bring out the worst in me. She smiled beneath her messy hair, moist with sweat. Ha, don't I know it? I smiled back. You'll pay for that. Later. Sophie threw the pillow back, and it hit me in the face. We fell asleep, and when we woke up the evening had turned night. Damn, I said. Now my sleep cycle's going to be all messed up. Sophie got out of bed and got dressed. She slipped on her watch and looked at its face. Double damn, I'm going to be late for Lydia's party. She pulled her sweater over her head. I've got to run, dear, but it's been smashing as always. She bent down to kiss me and I kissed her on the lips. Of course, always too busy for little old me, I said wistfully. Sigh, what is a boy to do? I put the back of my hand up against my forehead dramatically and laughed. She stuck out her tongue at me. Bye, Tommy. Bye, Sophie. I got dressed and headed out to the bar. I was meeting Jack at 10. It had started to rain, and then night felt cold and alive, earlier than it was. It was when I passed by the alley on 73rd next to that Chinese restaurant. The narrow one that somehow seemed extra dark and always freaked me out ever since I had started noticing it, that I heard a strange noise. It sounded like a mix between a yelp and a growl. I stopped in my tracks, not knowing whether to investigate or run. My choice was made for me, though. A woman stumbled out of the alley. The sight of her made my blood run cold. She was wearing a shredded tank top and jeans, both soaked in blood. She had blood in her hair, and on her face too. There was so much of it that it was pooling down by her feet. I wanted to call out to her, but my voice was stuck in my throat. She didn't need me to say anything, though. She was already making her way over to me. "Are you hurt?" I managed to whisper, but the look on her face answered that for me. It wasn't a look of pain or fear. It was a look of determination, of anger, of hatred. It was then that I began wondering if the blood was hers or someone else's. I panicked, fearing for my life. I should have run. I know that now. But hindsight is 20/20ths. I guess the adrenaline made me think that I was stronger than her. Plus, I thought to myself, what if she is hurt and needs help? Did I really want to walk away from someone who could be dying? She was only a few feet away from me when she fell to the ground. I should have asked her if she was okay. I should have said that I was going to get help. I should have ran. But I didn't. I did the opposite. I walked up to where she was sitting, and I crouched down next to her. That was where everything went wrong. Suddenly, the woman jumped up, and before I could move, she threw me to the ground. My vision turned starry as a searing white pain burst through my skull. I only partially saw her face as she bent towards me. I couldn't tell if it was just the blurriness, but were her teeth sharpened? Now is not the time to worry about people's dental hygiene. I reminded myself, trying to pull myself away from whoever this crazy bitch was. My head immediately disagreed, screaming in agony. The woman barked out a laugh above me. There was nothing else I could do but slowly, pathetically, painfully try to drag myself across the sidewalk and as far away as possible. With every shift of my body, she took a patronizing step towards me.
Ashit.
I finally hit the wall. She started bending down towards me again. I tried to scream, but all that came out was a low moan. I was powerless against whatever she was going to do. Without warning, her head jerked hard to my neck and ripped at the skin, leaving a huge, gaping wound as her nails dragged down my chest. I don't remember if I physically screamed, but mentally I have never been louder. A few more bites, and I was on the verge of passing out. From the distance, somebody screamed, and all I could think in my fucked up state was, same. For some reason, the woman attacking me seemed off-put by this and got up, slinking back into the alley, tripping onto her hands and knees as she did. As red and blue flashes soon came into my quickly fading vision, I realized that somebody must have called the police or an ambulance. I vaguely noticed two people run over to with some sort of contraption, and they began to lift me up onto it. "There," I whispered, trying to point to the alleyway, but my arm falling miserably to my side.
What?
One of the people said. "The woman." I slurred out. They didn't seem to understand. "It's all right, sir. We're going to take you to help." I kept trying to tell them who attacked me, but to no avail, as I passed out almost as soon as they rolled me into the ambulance. I woke up in a hospital bed with no recollection of anything that had happened the night before. Very slowly, the pieces started to fill in. I tried to sit up, but there was so much pain everywhere that I immediately collapsed again. Rendered immobile, all I could do was wait for someone to come check in on me. What felt like forever later, I noticed two people standing outside my door. I didn't recognize them, but I could recognize that they seemed to be arguing over something. Eventually, the man ran his hands over his face before quietly stepping into my room. "Tommy," he said, "good to see you awake."
I'm Dr. Engelman.
What? I couldn't manage any more words than that. I truly was exhausted. Yes, there are quite a few things to tell you. Would you like the good news first, or the bad news? Good news, I croaked out through a parched mouth and cracked lips. I saw his eyebrows raise a fraction as he ticked off a box that read, cognizant and responsive. He looked back up at me and saw my eyes on his clipboard, which he turned so that I couldn't read it. "Well, Tommy, the good news is that we saved your life." You will recover all your motor functions and mostly lead a normal life." He stopped talking and looked at me. "Bad news?" I croaked, drinking some water. "Well, not sure exactly how bad it is, or if it is entirely bad. There is quite a bit of cosmetic scaring from the animal attack, and once we get you fit enough to leave of your own recognizance, or a family member comes to get you, we can discuss some options in that respect. Now, the odd news. The animal that attacked you seems to have infected with what seems to be some sort of benign form of rabies." I sat up suddenly in shock. The doctor placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Tommy, please, relax." I said it was benign, which means we believe it is harmless. I was still skeptical, and Engelman could see it, plain as day, on my face. "We treated you while you were unconscious for rabies. That's part of the muscle soreness you're feeling, and it seems to have paid off. You're a lot better off than you were when they brought you in here 2 weeks ago." I dropped my water cup and found my voice again. 2 weeks. It made my throat raw. "What the? Please tell me you're fucking with me." Engelman gave me a sheepish look and explained. "You presented with swelling of the brain, and the bite was severely infected, and we thought it prudent to place you in a medically induced coma." I sat there and took in the news. I asked absent-mindedly for a phone to call Sophie or my folks. I called Sophie first. "Tommy," she exclaimed, "I'm already on my way with your parents." They called them. Then they called me as soon as you were awake. We chit-chat about how I was feeling and what all I couldn't remember. In less than 20 minutes, they all three burst into my room. It hurt to talk. Not much had changed since I was attacked. I was a missing person for a few days before everyone was sorted out. Then I asked Soph to close the door. "Listen, it wasn't an animal. It was a woman that bit me." They looked at me sideways. "Tommy," my mother cooed, "I think they would be able to recognize if it was a person." Soph sat her hand on my head. I shook it under her fingernails for a refreshing scratch. That simple action soothed me. Ever since waking up, it had felt like my head was being split slowly in half. It felt like every muscle I had was stiff and sore. I had constantly felt on edge, and the attack from 2 weeks ago flashed through my mind. I could still see the woman's hunched back, the mania in her eyes, her jagged teeth. Wait, was it really a woman? My mother had a point. Maybe the doctors were right. Maybe it really was a rabid animal that had attacked me. My head pained me. My vision swam. I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that I felt happy with Sophie there, scratching my head. "Everything's going to be all right, babe," she said. I closed my eyes. Thanks. Thanks for coming here so quickly." "It's fine," Sophie said. "You should really be thanking Dr. Engelman and the other doctors here. They saved you. We were scared to death, Tommy. We thought we'd lost you. I spent about a week here, waiting by your side."
I'm sorry.
"Fuck, I'm so sorry." "There's nothing to be sorry about, son," my father said. "None of this is your fault. We're just glad you survived. The others weren't so lucky." "The others?" I croaked. My mother slapped my father's arm and said something to him in a hushed whisper, but he continued. "There were a few other victims. Others around the area who got attacked by the same animal. 10 people died that night, maybe more." I recalled the scream I had heard on the night of the incident. So it had been another victim. "That's terrible." "Holy shit," I said. Sophie told me more. "Word is that the doctor and his team proposed the same coma treatment for the others. Unfortunately, it wasn't as effective for them. Apparently, you were all in critical conditions, and the treatment was a Hail Mary that may or may not have worked." That's not what Dr. Engelman said," I stammered. She patted me on the head, ruffling my hair, comforting me. "He was probably trying to lighten the load for you." You've been through a lot, babe. Don't worry about any of that, sweetie, my mother said soothingly. You're safe now, and that's all that matters. We don't have to worry about anything else. We were interrupted by someone knocking on the door. My father went to get it. It's Dr. Engelman, he said. They want to do a quick checkup to make sure you're all right. Hans Sof, we have to wait outside. As a team of doctors began to file inside, bearing all sorts of notes and equipment, my mother and girlfriend got up to leave. Sophie gave me a quick hug, embracing me in my bed. She pecked me on my right cheek, and then she said something into my ear in a subtle, hushed whisper. 3 words. 3 words that sent a chill crawling down my spine. Don't trust him. My parents and Sophie left and Engelman came back into the room, a big grin across his face. You're feeling better, son? Quiet and ordeal you've been through. These are the sorts of things he said. He said they were conditionally releasing me, but wanted me to come back in a couple days for observation. I signed some forms. They gave me my things back. Engelman was there still grinning next to me the whole time, then finally said goodbye and disappeared into the labyrinthine green hallways of the hospital with his brown clipboard. Mom, Dad, and Sophie were waiting for me at the exit. We all hugged and Sophie kissed me. I love you, son, my dad said. I'm just glad you're all right. I love you too, Dad, I said. I just want to go home. Mom and Dad said goodbye and got into their white Chevy and drove away. Sophie and I got into her car and took off out into the night. It was dark outside and the moon was bright and full and round and white. 2 weeks, I thought. It feels like months have passed. It felt like time had no meaning anymore. I scratched behind my ear and looked at the hairs on my arm. They seemed darker than I remembered somehow. Sophie said how crazy everything was and how she thought I was dead. She started to cry, and I watched her wipe away tears glistening in the moonlight with her index finger. Her left hand stayed on the steering wheel, but I could see she clutched it tightly. It was dark in the apartment. The only light was that of the full moon pouring in through the bay windows. I didn't turn on the lights. For some reason, I didn't feel like it. Just threw my things on the floor and kicked off my boots. Sophie reached for the light switch, but I grabbed her hand. Tommy, she said softly. Her cheeks were still wet from crying. What are you doing? Shoo, I said, and kissed her. My lips were still dry. She kissed me back hard and then held me, and in the darkness I couldn't quite tell, but it sounded like she was crying again. I missed you so much, she said. I put my hands on her, and we kissed again. Her tongue was warm and soft in my mouth, and it tasted good. Like, really good. Have you ever had a steak that was so perfectly cooked that you had to resist from shoving the whole thing in your mouth? It was like that, only better. I couldn't help myself. I bit her tongue. Ow! Sophie screamed and jumped up. What the fuck, Tommy? I started apologizing profusely, tripping over my words as I took a gentle step towards her. Babe, I don't know what, I didn't. I dash as I kept walking towards her. I could feel myself wanting to bite into her flesh again. Oh God, it was overwhelming. I spent my entire consciousness trying to push it back down my throat. I don't even remember how I got her to sit back down again, but somehow we were back on the couch together. Close. Very close. It was like I could smell her heartbeat. It was right there, in her throat, and I needed it down mine. Something animalistic came from deep inside me, and I started ripping apart her skin, trying to get whatever it was I needed from her. I hear her screams for a moment, and then suddenly, they stopped. I wasn't even aware of what I was doing. It just felt right. The taste of her skin and the texture of her blood, and finally I knew why that woman attacked me like this. Oh shit. I don't know why that thought snapped me out of my craze, but suddenly, I sat back and looked at what I had done. There was Sophie, or what was left of Sophie, covered in dark red from my couch to my kitchen. I had done that. Yet, I felt almost nothing. I knew, deep inside me, that I should be panicking, hyperventilating, running screaming out of my building, but that part was silenced by everything else in me. I calmly stood up and walked into my bathroom. It was only when I looked in the mirror that I began to feel. There was my reflection, except it looked nothing like me at all. Suddenly, I had a huge mange of hair all over my chin, some covering the rest of my face. As I internalized what I saw, I raised my hand to feel my face and saw that my hand, too, was suddenly covered in more hair than a dog's tail. Then since that none of that, should have happened hit me all at once and I began to freak out. I clawed my skin, wishing desperately to be who I was only last month, when Sophie and I were happy and together and alive and normal and it took what felt like forever for me to calm down. I'm still panicked. I'm still lost. But I made myself sit up and look back in the mirror. It was too much. Too much change. Too much hair. I know. It's fucked up to be sitting here worrying about a beard when my girlfriend's corpse and torn up in my living room. Nothing makes sense right now. Nothing has made sense since the night of the attack. I was going to turn myself in. I don't want to live like this, knowing what I did, knowing that I liked it, but there's only one thing that stopped me. Just a minute ago, I got a call from Dr. Engelman. With a shaky hand, I slipped my phone out of my back pocket and picked it up, but before I could even say anything, he whispered, "Shh, there's no time. I know what you just did. I know what you are. Don't worry. I'm coming. Just close all your blinds, all right? Don't let the moonlight in, and don't go outside. I'm coming." And with that, he hung up. So, what? I turn myself in, saying that I'm a werewolf now and be put in a mental hospital, or I wait here and hope that Dr. Engelman know what he's talking about. I could run away, but that only increases the risk that I'll hurt another person. To me, it seems that I only have one option. I can only hope it's the right one. Still, as I sit here, waiting, Sophie's words keep playing in my mind, like she was still whispering them into my ear at this very second. Fourth story. I'm a werewolf, and I'm afraid of my human girlfriend. I think I wanted it at first. Being a werewolf was such a chaotic, wild experience, constantly hanging on the edge of control, staring into the chasm of instinct and impulse, seeing how long I could teeter on the border of sanity. Melissa represented caution, discipline, and control. It had been like a sigh of relief, a release from responsibility, to be on a metaphorical leash. She grounded me, policed me, made sure I kept my nose clean. It started out self-imposed. I chose to stay in for the nights, chose to stay human. I couldn't let her find out about my condition. And on top of that, she was the perfect excuse to get me out of the weekly, if not nightly, hunts my pack always dragged me along for. After a while, though, I'm not exactly sure when, it stopped being self-imposed. After holding back from my carnal nature for a period of time, I began to crave it, but every time I decided to leave, my heart would start pounding. I'd start looking over my shoulder as I got ready, feeling guilty and, for some reason, apprehensive, these feelings strong enough to dissuade me from leaving. I remember the first time I saw Melissa standing in the threshold between the dining room and the kitchen, her hands on her hips, her eyes dull and calculating. My hand was on the doorknob, and she regarded me, frozen in that position, like an alpha would a pup who'd taken more than his fair share of a kill. "Where are you going?" she asked. I swallowed. my mind searching for an explanation. I couldn't tell her I was a werewolf going to run with the pack. You're not leaving for the night, are you? She said as her head leaned to one side critically. It was a question, but it wasn't a question. I turned my head aside, my heart beating heavily in my chest. For a moment, indignation rose in me. I was a werewolf, a terrifying beast of the night. How dare that mere human instill such fear in me? My eyes happened to glance out the window, and I saw the empty trash bin still sitting down at the end of the driveway. Relief flooded through me, and before I could think about what I was saying, I spoke. Of course not. I just happened to see the trash cans out there. Forgot to bring them in earlier, so I figured I'd run out and grab them now. At that, Melissa's thin line of a mouth curled into a smile, and she nodded. My quest for the trash cans had been approved. I turned away from her and opened the door, and that's when she said it quietly, but loud enough for me to hear. Good boy. The hair on my arms stood up, and I paused in the doorway. My breaths became heavier as thoughts and emotions raced through me, but I shoved all the implications aside. The trash needed to be brought in. That was a few weeks ago, and now the leash felt more like a noose. Every rebellious thought I had, every time I tried to pull away, I felt this closing grip around my throat as pulling away only tightened the knot. Eventually, however, the need to leave, to run, and to hunt was left so long unsated. It grew to match the feelings that held me back. Over the course of a few days, I built up the courage to confront Melissa, and on the night I told my pack I would join them, I approached her. I opened the door to the basement, and the rattling sound of the washing machine bounced up the stairwell to my ears. I swallowed and descended. The basement was unfinished, and Melissa stood on the concrete floor in front of the washer and dryer, two shining white pieces of machinery in an otherwise gray and brown basement. A single incandescent light bulb with a pull string hung over Melissa's head like a one-dimensional halo, casting hard shadows about the room. I reached the bottom of the stairs and waited. She was finishing up setting the dryer to run, and I didn't want to interrupt her. Finally, the dryer hummed to life, joining the running washing machine in a chorus of mechanical grumbles and clicks. Melissa heaved a basket of clean laundry up to rest on her hip, and she turned. Oh, Terry, did you need something? My voice caught in my throat, and I stared at her dumbly for a few moments. Her eyes narrowed at me, and shiver ran down my spine. Something the matter, Terry? She asked. I cleared my throat and steeled myself. Some friends of mine are going out for the night, and I'd like to. I stopped as the noose tightened. Melissa's face hadn't changed, but somehow it had. Her gaze burned into me. I could almost feel my skin peeling and curling from the heat. My eyes fell away from hers and settled on the basket weighing heavily on her hip. I took a step forwards and reached out my arms towards the laundry. Here, let me take that. I can carry it upstairs so. My voice trailed off as Melissa made no movement to allow me to take custody of the laundry basket. She just held her piercing gaze on me. Some friends of yours are going out for the night, and you? You'd like to? She echoed, using my exact tone until she curled the end of it into a question. My head dipped submissively, but I pressed on. I'd like to, I swallowed and furrowed my brow. No, my words would not be a question or a request. I raised my head to meet her gaze. I'm going to head out with Ash. And you're telling me this at 9:30 at night? She asked sharply. My gut twisted. Well, I didn't mean to wait so long. Time got away from me. Here, let me take that laundry basket. I didn't think we had anything planned for this evening, so I didn't think about mentioning it until now. I rattled off as I reached again for the basket hanging on her hip. Again, she made no move to hand it to me. "Upstairs," she stated, her voice terrifyingly devoid of emotion. My entire body tensed up. I didn't move. Melissa stepped around me and started up the stairs, her footstep heavy with the weight of the laundry she lugged along. I listened to her ascend, but heard her stop at the top of the stairs. The floor creaked as she turned to regard me.
Come?
My feet moved without thinking. My head stayed down. I traipsed up the stairs behind her and followed her as she walked into the living room and sat down on the couch. She set the basket down in front of her and then patted the seat beside her. I moved to it and sat. "Help me fold this laundry. Since you've been staying here, I've got double the amount I usually do. After this, I've got 2 more loads coming through," she told me. My voice came out quietly. "Last time I tried to help, you told me I was folding things the wrong way. And now you know the right way," she stated cheerfully. I felt a heat begin to rise in my chest. "You just want me to help so I can't go out." Silence hung in the room like a fog. Melissa said nothing, so I stood up. "Down," she ordered. My body almost listened instinctively, and that made me angry. I let out a snarl and faced her, my heart pounding in my chest. "You do not order me around like that. I will tolerate it no longer." Melissa turned her icy cold glare to me, and it took everything I had not to falter. "I said, down," she repeated. My lips peeled back in furious grimace, baring my teeth. "Who do you think you are?" Melissa's lip twitched, and then her mouth creased into a frown. "Don't push it," she warned me. I laughed, incredulous. "Don't push it? You've been pushing me around for weeks. I'm going out tonight, whether you like it or not." I stormed off towards the front door. "Terry, stay," Melissa barked. I felt compulsion grip my chest, but it only infuriated me more. Something in me snapped, and a burning sensation spread through my entire body. I was going to change. I couldn't stop it, and I was fine with that. I hunched over as my bones and muscles twisted and snapped and grew. I felt my face stretch into a pointed snout, and hair crawled through every inch of my skin. My teeth grew, my canines sharpened, my clothes ripped and parted into shreds. I let out a deep guttural growl and spun to face Melissa. I would see fear in her eyes. I would see in her the same apprehension she instilled in me. I reveled in the thought of her shrinking away, terrified of my true form, but the woman was doing no such thing. Slowly she rose and stepped away from the couch, regarding me with something like disappointment and perhaps a bit of pity. Rage overtook me, and I lunged at her with a snarl. Melissa stood her ground, and I stopped an inch from her face. There was no fear, no apprehension, no sense of mortal danger from her. I was several feet taller than her in my true form, and yet somehow she looked down on me. Her shape didn't change, but in my head, she grew. She grew bigger than me, and she was stronger than me. That's what her eyes said. That's what her posture told me, and I could not bring myself to argue. "Sit," she commanded, her face twitching into a moment of a grimace as she spoke. My jaw snapped shut, and I fell to my hindquarters. Melissa's hand curled into a fist, save her index finger which pointed to the ground. "Lay down." Defeated, I let out a slight whimper as I willingly collapsed to the floor, placing my chin on the ground at her feet. "Now, stay," she bid me, a hint of irresistible softness entering her voice. I stayed there for a few moments and did nothing but breathe. Melissa slowly lowered herself into a squat, and her hand rested upon my head. Her knuckles curled, and she scratched through the fur between my ears. "Good boy," she cooed quietly. I felt my body relax, and a euphoric sensation spread through every inch of my being. And I had never been more afraid. Fifth story. I'm a park ranger and my job is to sedate a werewolf every night. It doesn't matter where I'm employed as a park ranger. What does matter is my secret job, the thing that I do when I'm off the grid, so to speak. A werewolf started appearing about 6 months ago, and I'm still not sure why. At first, we got calls from visitors saying they encountered grizzly bears, or something approximating one, deep in the forest. For the first few months, we got maybe a dozen calls. After that, things really started to ramp up, daily or rather, nightly sightings. Despite that, no one could really get a good look at the thing everyone assumed to be bear. Then my boss showed up, a man I rarely saw. He tossed a tranq dart gun at me and told me to head into the woods. Whatever you do, don't kill the thing. Based off the information we've been able to gather, this is no damn bear. Something possibly supernatural. Does this have anything to do with Elijah's disappearance last month? Something killed Elijah, and we never found the body. James only gave a slight nod, something that could be denied later if asked. The less you know, the better, Liam. Just take your truck and head into the woods. I'll mark the most recent sighting on your map, James said, crossing his arms and giving me a look that told me not to ask any more questions, but I couldn't help myself. Guess some weird government agency is involved in this if you're telling me not to kill it. You'd think the safety of the visitors would come first, I said, but James cut me off. Now, officially, that's none of our business, Liam. Just Takin orders. You'd be wise to do the same. So I closed my mouth and got to work, loading my vehicle with some last-minute things I thought I might need. Food/water/binoculars. Then I got in the truck and drove down the winding road. I decided to not get on the walkie because I didn't want to alert James. My plan was this: pick up Bill, my partner in crime more or less, at his usual patrolling location, then head off to where the location James marked on the map and see if we couldn't tag team this thing. I caught Bill just sitting in his patrol truck, reading an Agatha Christie novel and smoking a cigarette. I remember him telling me how relaxing he found it. Being out here, not a care in the world, tending to his biological needs, the cigarette, and the needs of his higher brain, the Agatha Christie novel. Hey, Bill, we got a situation James wants us to look into. Bill looked up from his novel, mildly irritated. What kind of situation? Gotta trank something. You know, that thing that everyone thinks is a bear but probably isn't. Why trank instead of kill? Yeah, I was wondering that too. Anyway, hop in. Good buddy. We got a long night ahead of us, and that's putting it really fucking mildly. Bill got in, and we drove off in the direction of the last sighting. I filled Bill in on what little I knew. Guess the thing that really concerns me is why now? Why a month after Elijah's death? Bill asked, thumbing through the book in his hands, but not really reading it. That caught my attention too. I don't know the reason. I just know that something fishy is going on. Then that's when we saw it. A large, hairy beast, running on all fours, then randomly standing upright and roaring. Our headlights seemed to confuse the thing. Bill took out his pistol, rolled down the window and fired. Bill, what the fuck are you doing? No lethal force is allowed on this thing. We gotta use the tranq gun. The thing, which upon closer inspection looked exactly like a werewolf, just roared and charged at the truck, grabbing its bottom and shaking it violently until Bill and I were completely disoriented. It then leapt into the trees. What the fuck is wrong with you? I said to Bill again once my head stopped spinning. I said no lethal weapons. Sorry, Liam. Just got rattled is all. Wasn't going to get turned to human paste because a pair of government-issue sunglasses told us not to us actual bullets. Bill replied, face flushed. Well, after that I began to drive again, keeping our eyes peeled for the werewolf. We heard howls coming from the infinite line of trees to our left. No matter how much we combed the woods, we didn't find anything. This went on for several nights, experiencing horrific sightings of the massive man-wolf. I went by myself after the first night because I didn't trust Bill not to fire bullets at the thing. James was ripping me a new ass because I couldn't track the damn thing down. At least, not keep it in my sights long enough to trank it. On the fourth night, I sat in my truck on the side of a wide road, scanning the eerily still line of palm trees. My ears pricked as I heard the soft crunch of twigs as Tired crushed them. I peeked in the rear-view mirror and saw a sleek black car parking behind me. A short woman with red hair came out of the car, using precise movements so that not 1 ounce of energy was wasted. "Are you Liam?" the woman asked, popping into my window like she was a cop about to give me a ticket. I heard the trees rustle behind her and began to perspire a little on my forehead. "I tell you that you shouldn't be out this way, ma'am, since we've had a few bear sightings out this way, but," I started. "I don't mean to be blunt, but I outrank park rangers." Again, not trying to be a jerk, just stating a fact. The woman seemed fairly young, and her smile sent a shiver down my spine because it was so emotionless. She explained to me what was going on. She worked for a government agency, one I hadn't heard before, and they had been working on a serum to reverse the transformation of the werewolf. They were hoping I could sedate the thing before it did any real damage, or chose to move on to an even broader wilderness. There has been a reason why this werewolf has been so good at evading you, and I'm not sure it has anything to do with it having preternatural abilities, the woman said. She finally introduced herself as Sarah Perkins. "Here, take this tranq gun. It comes with a special tranquilizer that will not only sedate the werewolf, but also hopefully reverse his transformation. It hasn't been tested on his kind, since we believe he is the only one of his kind that exists," Sarah said and handed me a much larger gun than I had, which had a small tube filled with yellow liquid fitted onto the top. She had one for herself too. We hurried into the woods, following the howls until I felt like we were dangerously close. Sarah scanned the environment, looking more vigilant than nervous. Okay, maybe a little nervous, but she hit it remarkably well. As for me, I was terrified, not afraid to admit that since I didn't have special government training to deal with a friggin' werewolf. The trees all around us began to rustle, and before I could really get my bearings, the massive hairy beast shot from the top of one of the trees and landed on the ground. My hands shook. I tried to steady my gun, except my nerves wouldn't let me. "Steady," I said, "steady." But I just couldn't calm my shaking hands. The beast slowly moved closer on all fours, fierce yellow eyes fixed on me. A pound of drool must have escaped from its jaws, hanging from them in thick, disgusting streams that made me want to vomit. It swiped the air with massive claws, growling. Just as I thought I was a goner, I heard the sound of a whisper whizzing by at about 100 miles an hour, landing in the beast's hairy, bulging neck. Without thinking, I fired my own gun. The dart landed in the thing's abdomen. It growled weakly and collapsed onto the ground. Sarah didn't waste any time. She ran toward the thing and placed a small chip deep into the fur of its right arm. "Tracking device," she said as its breathing slowed. The tranq/transformation dart did what she claimed. The beast began to shrink. The fur started to go back into the skin. It all happened so quickly that at first I didn't believe what I was seeing. I went over to the man, who shivered and rubbed his arms. The transformation had taken a toll on him. It took me a minute, but I recognized the man. "Elijah," I said under my breath. "You're alive." How is this even possible? Well, congratulations, Sarah, a man's voice said from behind. You got to subject X first. You won the bet. I turned around. Bill, what is going on? I asked, tone clearly frazzled. Sarah jumped in. We work at the same agency. We had a little bet going. Whoever got to the werewolf first could do with it as it pleased. Kill it or trank it and put a tracking device on it. Of course, my way aligned with the agency's. Bill here is a renegade. Wants to eliminate everything in sight. Bill gave a soft chuckle. Well, guess I got what I want either way, Bill said, grinning and patting me on the back as he walked past me. He knelt in front of Elijah and seemed to pluck one of the remaining werewolf hairs from one of its forearms and put it in a small glass vial. Then Sarah and Bill seemed to be talking in code, and I couldn't at all parse what they were saying. Bill came up to me afterward. Okay, Liam, we better get out of here before that trank dart wears off. Looks like the serum's effects were only temporary. It'll completely change back into werewolf form in less than 15 minutes. Part of the transformation has already begun. The sedative will wear off in about 10 after that. But don't worry, we can track the thing with the device Sarah put on it. So we all left. Sarah in her sleek government vehicle, and Bill and I in our park ranger truck. You can't tell James that I work for a government agency that hunts a werewolf, he said. Now, I wanted to kill the thing, wipe it off the map, but Sarah had other plans. I have to respect the bet. I lost. She won. Which means that Elijah will be roaming the woods, and we have to track him every night, study him. After a while, once the agency has all the information it needs, it will either give a kill order, and I can deliver a bullet to the thing's brain, or it will come up with a serum that will permanently erase Elijah's werewolf tendencies. So, with Bill's help, I track Elijah every night, using regular trank darts to sedate him. We take hair and skin samples, put everything into stainless steel containers that get shipped back to a secret government lab. They are working on a serum just like Bill said, one which will be permanent. I've learned to accept Bill's new identity, aspiring werewolf killer. I'll deal with it when the time comes. I think I have additional problems to the fate of Elijah because I've gone to the workman's cabin, seeing Bill with those strange yellow eyes more than once. I'm not sure if he is a full-fledged werewolf, because he's been with me every night, and I just see him in his human form, except sometimes as we are driving along. I'll see his eyes turn yellow under the deep shadows cast by the moon. Something is clearly different. Did the sample he took from Elijah that night have something to do with it? I feel trapped in this situation. Bill seems something else besides human, and I can't abandon my post without making him suspicious. I also don't want to abandon my post because I feel like I have a duty to the visitors here to keep this werewolf at bay. And I do agree with Sarah, given the circumstances, I don't feel comfortable ending the life of a fellow park ranger. Bill's a relative newcomer, and I worked with Elijah for years before he disappeared. I don't want to give up on a fellow ranger.